Joining us now for his take on all of this is PJ Crowley, a former spokesman for the U.S. State Department. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
How did Secretary Kerry do? And do you think that Secretary Kerry and Hagel made a compelling case for action? Do you think they convinced their former colleagues in the Senate?
All good questions. I think there is a strong case. The Secretary of State laid it out on Friday. I would call it an indictment of Bashar al-Assad. He connected the increasing knowledge of a chemical attack back to the regime. But obviously, you saw today the senators are wrestling with the same questions that everybody is wrestling with. What would this accomplish? How does it fit into the broader Syrian strategy? How does that fit into a broader regional strategy? And what happens the day after there's the military strike? How much confidence is there that of what Bashar al-Assad will or won't do? And what happens if this first action does not deter him from using chemical weapons again?
Well, and this is just the beginning. They were there speaking for hours, it seemed. It was probably about 3-4 hours, and they're going to have to do the same thing on the House side. What happens then? Where will all this talking get them?
Well, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee could, as early as tomorrow, make its views known, and then it would go to the Senate as a whole. Then next week, when the House comes back, I think there will be a relatively speedy process. And of course, all of these senators and representatives are confronting this difficult question in the face of an American public that is very skeptical, that does see the potential slippery slope, despite all the assurances about no boots on the ground. But in the background, there is this ghost of Iraq.
Well, you know, and if Congress does eventually approve a military strike, which a lot of people, as you mentioned, are skeptical that they can even get to a point where they're all in agreement, how early could we see something happen?
I would suspect that when there's a vote, the administration will act relatively quickly after that. You know, because you've also heard today questions about, look, we've telegraphed to Assad what we're going to do. He's had time to shift, you know, some assets around, and so part of the question is how much damage will this actually inflict? I think Secretary Kerry, Secretary Hagel, Chairman Dempsey, were confident that if there's an American military strike, it will inflict meaningful damage on Bashar al-Assad and his regime.
Well, and that's a great point that you make, because, you know, President Obama maintains that this strike will deter chemical weapons use. But how would that be if they have enough time to move resources around the country?
I think one of the pivotal points today is that, you know, it may be necessary to strike Assad, attempt to deter, but have to do that multiple times. Bashar al-Assad sees chemical weapons as just, you know, one weapon in his arsenal, and he's already demonstrated he's prepared to use these weapons to ensure his survival. So part of what the administration has asked for, and Congress was understanding today, is that while this will be limited, it will be perhaps more than one shot. Assad may well challenge the red line at some point, and so the United States is prepared to inflict damage each and every time he uses chemical weapons going forward.
You know, I ask you this every time you come on the show, drawing on your experience at the State Department. We obviously see what's happening on Capitol Hill, but what's happening diplomatically behind the scenes with other countries watching what's taking place here in the United States and looking forward to the G20 and to the UN General Assembly in September? What's taking place there?
Well, I think there's a great deal of effort to try to make this as legitimate a potential action as possible. And a lot of countries are coming online and making their views known about the benefits of action, their concerns. Ban Ki-moon, the UN Secretary General, indicated today that he will lead a discussion about Syria at the upcoming G20 meeting this week in St. Petersburg. I'm sure behind the scenes, the President and others will be buttonholing leaders and looking to try to make sure that there's as much support internationally as possible when the President has to make the decision.
10 seconds. How do you see this all playing out?
It's going to be a very, very tough fight in the Congress. I do believe at the end of the day, President Obama will get the support he's asked for.
All right, PJ Crowley, we appreciate your time. Thank you as always.
Thanks, Elaine.